top of the table.
Hello, everyone. I am so grateful today for having this opportunity to bring you our very first podcast. So, welcome to Top of the Table, a podcast series which intends to bring some light into your lives, addressing emotional problems or roadblocks which act as barriers in getting happiness home. I am Sheetal Sharma, Head of Content with United We Care, your favorite emotional well-being app, and I'm extremely delighted to welcome Jaswandi Sahasrabuddhe, who is a clinical psychologist. She brings with her years and years of experience in the world of psychology and who will be a friend, philosopher, and guide on this journey. Welcome, Jaswandi.
Thank you so much, Sheetal. I cannot tell you, I'm so excited to actually start this journey because I feel, yes, this is something that can bring awareness, not just about psychology or mental health, but just to enhance everyone's state of well being or wellness to a great extent.
So, Jaswandi, today, like we had discussed, the topic is very important and possibly the step number one of feeling emotionally better, which is self awareness. So, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little about what really self awareness is?
Yes, Sheetal, why not? And as if you remember, when we were discussing about self awareness, I told you this is something that I'm very much passionate about, because I believe this is the first step to start your own journey. Okay. Nowadays, self awareness, has become a latest buzzword and a millennial word of, oh, I am being aware of what I think. So, but I would say yes, self awareness is equally important. Before we jump on to understanding what self awareness, I would say self awareness is not just knowing what you are or who you are, it's more about knowing your ability to see yourself clearly, not just by answering questions, but also by reflecting on who you are.
Absolutely, Jaswanti. I think and self reflection in the process is such an important thing. It kind of improves your relationships, it helps you become a more effective leader, and even it helps you to get to know what you want and how you want it so that you can be a part of more profitable companies or maybe lead those profitable companies. But tell me something. I mean, like you said, that self awareness has become the buzzword these days, but I think that many people, while they claim that they might be self aware, but they might not be self aware. So, how does a person know whether that person is self aware or not?
Sheetal, I would say that's a good question. These days, I've been talking to all the young Gen Z generation, and you might have seen a lot of times they talk. Oh, you know what? I know what I want, or who am I? You don't need to tell me who am I. And that's when this question actually comes pops in to think about, do you are you actually self-aware, or is that you just feel that you're self-aware? So I always say that we can recognize that we are self-aware or not by actually defining the three aspects. It's a triangle: thoughts, emotion, and behavior. Self-aware person has a clarity of what he thinks, what he feels, how he feels, and how he behaves, or how he puts all of this in action. So I would say the best way to understand whether you are a self-aware person or not is by knowing your values, your ethics, your principles, who you are, what you want to be, and also what he's actually doing. So if there is a so much lag or gap between who you are and what you want to do, then I would say yes, we need to actually sit down and reflect, because then there is a lack of self awareness. So when all of these three aspects align together, is when we actually can say that yes, I'm a self aware person.
To be honest, Jaswanti, when I was young and I had extreme clarity about my passion, I still do. I had extreme clarity about my passion, what I want to do in life, how I want to go about it, etc. But over the years, as I kind of went along, I also realized that despite knowing just your passion, your values sometimes kind of keep changing. So they keep shifting to a certain extent as well as you grow and you understand and you come in contact with different environments, different people.
So I would say yes. as you change, as you grow older, not just in terms of your age, Sheetal, but also in your experiences, when you start understanding that what I thought I wanted to be or how I wanted to be will obviously change. uh, it cannot be stagnant. So if you remember, Sheetal, when we were teenagers, okay, you liked certain things to be done in certain way, and if you actually reflect back on your past experience, you think, oh, did I actually think about it like this? And then you start understanding, oh no, like I have changed so much. I'll give you my example, Sheetal. I was a person, a complete introvert, okay. I hardly used to talk to people. I was very timid, I would say, okay. And I never used to go ahead and talk and interact and start a conversation. And today, when you see me and when I see myself in the mirror, I analyze and I understand, no, like that was such a different self of me, rather than who am I right now. So as you rightly said, as you develop, your values, your behaviors and your thoughts do change, but you need to know what changes and how can we change ourselves and accept ourselves, which leads you to being aware about yourself.
Also, just one thing, what I realized during the entire process was the fact that as I became more self-aware, more attuned to my own self and what I want in life, etc., it kind of shifted a lot of relationships for me. It
Mhm.
also affected a lot of friendships. So there was certain natural attrition that happened with a couple of friendships, and not that there was any conflict or anything that kind of left a bad taste in the mouth, but it was just a natural fizzling out of relationships. So as long as you have an understanding of the fact that now your values are different, which is why you're not friends, there could be a possibility that the other person might not be self-aware enough and he might label you as a certain person.
Yes, Sheetal, and I guess all the Gen Z generation right now, will agree to this, because you might agree to this, Sheetal, that when we were of a certain age, we had different kind of a friend circle, and now we have different friend circle. And I would say, rather than values, also, Sheetal, our experiences do change our awareness, our image about ourselves, our self concept also changes as we start getting new experiences.
But just one thing, it's not an easy process, like that initially when you start actually objectively looking at yourself, all right, and analyzing yourself, that journey can be a bit scary and bit murky. So sometimes you can be actually caught in a loop of not liking what you saw about yourself or how you were a certain way.
Mhm.
So how can one deal with all of that?
So I would say, Sheetal, self-analysis and self-awareness are two different concepts. Self-analysis is where you understand who you are. However, self-awareness is when you actually develop a good sense of yourself. Okay, because what happens in self-analysis is you start thinking or overthinking rather than actually getting to know yourself. So I would say, when we overthink, uh, there is a difference between overthinking and being self aware. So anything that is beyond a limit, everyone says this, right? We have been taught that everything needs to be in a balance. So any thinking about self that goes beyond a limit or which is uncalled for can be called as overthinking. And overthinking can actually hamper your awareness to a great extent. At times, for example, many people have this concern of, I need to look a certain way. I know I am not in the right frame of mind, or I would say I need to fit into this clothes or something like that. When I think about it, I know I'm aware about what I want to do or what is my goal. But when I start overthinking about it, is when I start over analyzing. I get into the loop of self doubt. I get into the loop of self criticism. And this sometimes leads to a lot of why questions, Sheetal. And when these why questions keep coming to you now and again, it becomes a cycle of overthinking. And what you said about going to the loop is what I feel.
So, just one thing, how can one ensure that you don't get into that loop? And like you said, that self analysis is very different from self awareness. So, like, let's say that can you possibly share an example of a person who wasn't self aware and how things shifted for? that person, after becoming self aware?
Yes, so I'll give you one example. Okay, I was working with a client, and the client was a young adult. Okay, and when we talk about self awareness, I'm glad, Sheetal, that people have actually started thinking about being aware and actually started introspecting, and that's a very good first step that we should be taking. And this client started her first job, and she was very happy initially when she had to just join. However, as days passed, she started getting feeling very lost and overburdened or demotivated. And she always used to keep saying that, you know what, I don't feel like doing things. I get into this thing of, can I do actually? Can I do this well? And that's when we realized what she's lagging here is knowing what she is good at, or knowing her self worth. And that's when we actually started working on her self-awareness, Sheetal. And trust me, within few sessions she had seen such a different sense of self. She had started looking at herself as a person who can be doing X, Y, and Z things, and that really helped her to boost her career to a greater extent, because she was so happy to join the career or the job that she was going to join. However, later things or experiences did matter to her and did affect her self awareness. These sessions really helped her to get to know her better, which helped her to be more productive at her job.
So true, Jaswandi. And in fact, I was listening to a couple of interviews of this organizational psychologist who's called Dr. Tasha Urich. And in one of her studies, she was talking about self awareness and how, anyone who's self aware, they replace the whys in their life with what. So, when you are instead of saying things like, why is this happening to me? You say, what can I do to make things better? And that in itself kind of shifts your perspective completely and makes you, find solutions instead of getting into that loop of problems. So if
True.
I talk about, steps like these, what are the 5 steps according to you which help a person become more self-aware?
So I would say, Sheetal, as you rightly said, yes, there is a lot of importance nowadays given to asking questions. But as you rightly said, the question should be more of what. So when you ask a what question, you tend to find a solution. When you tend to ask a why question, you actually go into analysis, right? So as we spoke about how analysis can get into overthinking. So here are my 5 steps which I would suggest anyone is first that yes, we need to start asking questions. When we ask questions is when we actually tend to understand what we want or how we want things to roll out. The second is we need to do a reality check. And Sheetal, I will tell you, this is the most important step, because when you know what's the reality, being very realistic in doing things makes you become more aware, and you develop a good sense of acceptance. This third one is that accepting or being open to feedback and feed forward. I have been a person who was very like I used to get very defensive when someone used to give me any feedback. And during my study of psychology is when I realized, no, when someone gives you a feedback, or more for that matter, a feed forward, that is a good step for you to climb a stair. Because someone is helping you to actually climb a stair rather than you thinking they are trying to pull me back. So as you said, rather than asking why did she say this to me, I could have asked, okay, she said this, what can I do for it? So that changes your perspective completely. The fourth thing is, I would say, use more of what questions. For example, what do I want to do? What is this? What is in this that can help me? As you said, why, rather than saying, why did this happen to me? I would say, what can I do to change it? So, being more assertive in terms of asking questions can be a very important aspect to become more aware. And the last but not the least, Sheetal, I would say self awareness comes when you sit down and reflect, when you introspect. So, this you might find it funny, but I tend to speak to myself a lot when I look into mirror. Okay, when I stand in front of the mirror, I tend to talk to myself, because I feel that is one way of getting to know myself better.
But I hope that doesn't usually end up into self bashing a lot of times, which could be a possibility also, because we say, oh my god, how did you, why did you say that, or you could have said this and you could have said that, things like that as well, when you're looking at yourself in the mirror.
So Sheetal, yes, rightly said. But if you saw, that was our fifth step. So if you're actually following the first four steps of asking what questions, having a positive conversation with yourself, this bashing yourself in front of the mirror will reduce to a certain extent. That's when you will actually start looking at yourself from a third person's point of view and start talking to yourself into more by having more assertive conversation with you.
Also, just one thing, this is one question that always intrigues me. As a third person, if there
Mhm.
is a self-aware person that comes in front of you and has a conversation or has any business dealing or anything with you, what is the kind of reaction the other person would have towards this self-aware person?
So I would say, Sheetal, here comes the aspect of reaction and response. There are the many a times we have been hearing about how it is important to respond rather than to react. So if you see a aware person generally responds to a situation, he or she is not impulsive in reacting to the situation. Because you know what you want, or you know who you are as a person. That's when you do not react, you respond, you take a minute and you're like, okay, let me answer this question in this way. On the other hand, a person who is not self aware does not have any idea of what is he looking for, which makes him react as soon as a person asks a question. He's like, oh, this is what I want to do, which which takes you a step back to reflect and introspect about what you want and how you want things to be.
So we can rightly say that, if you are self-aware, it basically gets your zen mode on.
Yes, yes, I will agree to that.
And possibly the other person views at you as a very sorted person who is always cool and chill and takes the right decisions every time,
So,
right?
Sheetal, I will say, like we have seen when we look at certain people, you feel this person is so much sorted, yeah. Like, how can he think in this way? And that makes us think, what is he doing? So, if you look at such a person and you have such questions, I would like to answer on that person's behalf is that that person is actually taking time to respond rather than to react, and that means that person is self aware.
So I don't think that I'll be wrong in saying that maybe a lot of leaders need to get self-aware.
Yes, true. I agree. I completely agree to this.
So, like they say, it's very lonely on the top,
Hmm.
because you're always surrounded by yes men. You're always surrounded by people who do not tell you honest truths, and therefore, since there is no feedback, you really don't know. That you need to work on yourself. So I think that that is a very important aspect of it, which is why possibly, maybe we as United We Care also can come into play when we have a lot of tools through which we can possibly help a person understand and analyze, and sorry for using the word analyze, become more self-aware, I'd rather say.
Yes, so Sheetal, a platform like United We Care, which is very robust in helping the person to actually understand how can he develop awareness about himself, not by just introspecting, because I have heard a lot of people say, Sheetal, that sitting and introspecting becomes very difficult for certain people. So a platform like UWC can be really helpful. I'll tell you two, three ways in how UWC can help. The first way is actually to get a test. Now, many people think that, oh, taking a psychometric test or a psychological test is actually like labeling. No, psychometric tests actually help you to understand what is the concern and how can you help, or what can you do to actually come out or make it more manageable or cope with it. The second way that a person can like make the best use of UWC is by actually getting to talk to an expert. Experts are here to help you become more self-aware, generate more information, not just, or bring the inner critic out for you. And the third and the most important, Sheetal, I feel, is that there are so many articles available, posts available, which help you, which are like a go along thing, which helps you to actually experience the art of reflection or the art of knowing yourself better through meditations, to mindfulness exercises, and many more.
And journaling, of course, I think that journaling plays a huge part in your life, to kind of get a little more aware about your emotions, how you're feeling, get in touch with your true authentic self.
So true, Sheetal. So this brings to our first statement that I said about self-awareness. If you know, it's a triangle. It's about your thoughts, emotions, and behavior. And as you rightly said, journaling does help us to actually align all the three aspects of this triangle.
Well, thank you so much, Jaswandi. I think this was a very interesting discussion, and I hope after this we have some listeners who get into the habit of journaling and using what instead of whys, and also other tips that you gave to them. Thank you so much for this interesting and very useful information. And I'd say that our next episode is going to be even more interesting because it's going to be about people pleasers.
Oh, that's interesting.
All right. So thank you, Jaswandi, and thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll see you next time.